Okay, so I've started up a new stream here, and I'm not sure if this has gone live just yet. So let me pull up a different view here to see if I'm actually live. I might be. And I'm also just checking in to see if my connection goes all crazy. So very odd, huh? Yeah, it's really bizarre, like how this live thing is going. So I've downscaled to from 1440 to 1080, and things seem to be more stable, maybe. Not really sure. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this chat out. Looking good so far. Let's see. Live stream. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So anyway, I will just go ahead and see if this whole thing will work. Okay. Strangely, you know, starting early, I just lost 3 minutes officially. So, well, I was about to say good morning because Carlos said morning, but good afternoon. Yeah, you know what? It's really, really bizarre as to like why I was getting so much difficulty streaming at that different bit rate. But this seems to be stable, knock on wood. We'll see. We shall see. I have very little faith that everything's going to go off without a hitch from this point forward, but so far so good, right? So somebody was asking earlier, Patrick B was how do you purchase from this live show? So you can go to tidalgardens.com/live, and there you will see the itemized list of corals that you're going to be seeing behind me. So for example, item number 2, going on to item number 3, it'll just show up as a number 3 icon. And if you wanted that particular coral, so item number 3 is Royal Purple Pallies, you would just put item number 3 into your shopping cart and check out like it's just a regular item. So as far as shipping goes, shipping is a flat rate $39.99 and free if your order total goes over $250. Now, it's probably going to be a little bit less competitive now because we're in summertime and this is kind of like a bonus live show, so I don't know what type of audience to expect, but sometimes these live shows do get competitive as far as purchasing. And to actually get a coral, you have to complete the checkout process. So it's a good technique just to check out for every single coral that you see and you like, rather than saving it in a shopping cart for a really long time, because if somebody else purchases it first, then you basically lose out on that coral. So if you do check out multiple times, as the shipping method, select adding to an existing order. That way you avoid getting that automatic flat rate shipping charge all the time. Let's see. So Aquatic Spendthrift is asking, what about 4K at 30 frames per second? So the broadcast software that I'm using, I think you have to get really creative to even do 4K broadcast at all. I'm not even sure if that's a possibility. Now, like strangely, what you're seeing on camera absolutely could be broadcast in 4K. The problem is I don't have the upstream bandwidth for 4K. We don't have fiber here to the internet mainframe essentially. I have a 10 GBE fiber on the property, but my actual internet connection is a fairly slow uplink. But so far as I can tell, I'm getting, it's like green light the whole way. And here's what's silly. This whole year, I've been doing really like high frame rate, 1440p live streams. No real issues until yesterday. So what was it? One production was saying, yeah, YouTube, they are probably maintaining servers. That's entirely possible. It's been wonky the last 3 days. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Let's see. When do we get new corals in? So Squidderp 12, it's a little hit and miss as to when we get corals. So we don't shop as much as some other places might. A lot of our stuff is really based around what we're able to propagate locally here. Now, one of the things holding us back is that we're building at a new facility and there's been all kinds of delays. So there are a ton of corals right now that are just entirely too big out at the greenhouse that we really do need to be cutting up, but there's no place to put all those cuttings. We were hoping to have these tanks up and running months ago, but still, it's going to be months more till we have these tanks up and running, it's looking like. Long story short, we do occasionally do some shopping trips, and also we do occasionally have hobbyists that are looking to downsize a specific colony of theirs, and we do purchase colonies that way. I think there's like one frog spawn on this live stream, but I don't know if it was purchased yesterday or not. I really haven't checked as to who purchased what. Yeah, so H2O NaCl. Yeah, the stream yesterday for the most part was going well, and then about 3/4 of the way through, it just fell off the face of the earth. Like I could not maintain a steady connection. And when I started this stream back up today, I wanted to try to see about getting a steady connection, and it was not happening. So I downscaled, and now things have been like smooth sailing as far as I can tell. Andrew K, is Fairlawn Gig delivering fiber to Copley yet? They might be in the future, but there's no real discussions. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. There are discussions, but I think it's further away. I think it's a little bit further away. Like, I was actually talking to somebody at zoning who's in on those discussions, but it's like kind of weird for Copley because Copley is a largely rural area and there aren't huge like concentrations of people. So it makes a lot more sense to have these fiber connections go to like more densely populated areas. And Bath, I think, did come to some agreement with Fairlawn. So if you guys aren't from the Northeast Ohio area or specifically Akron, Fairlawn has its own municipal fiber, which is like amazing. And pretty much all of my friends around here have it except for me. Now, Fairlawn is a fairly affluent area, whereas Copley is kind of a not quite so affluent area. It's more rural, like I said. But there's this other suburb called Bath, which is very high income. So like LeBron James lives in Bath. And so they kind of progressed the network over that way. Now, I expect at some point down the line, we will be getting fiber, but I'm not really sure when. And I said earlier, I kind of bugged the zoning guys here I was like, hey, I could really use this 1 gig upload speed. If that'll work out for you guys, could you do that? But everyone around here is like tomato farmers and stuff, so we'll see. I don't know if too many people can even use any part of fiber. Okay. So let's see, I've got a 150 gallon, 30-inch tall tank, and par is 250 at the top, 100 on the sand. Is that enough par? It depends on what you're trying to keep. I would say for 99% of everything, that should be fine. Par isn't something that I go completely crazy about. There's very few corals that really benefit from super high light, mainly Acropora and Montipora. Everything else, as long as you provided enough light and not totally cook the animal, it's going to be fine. Great that it didn't work out yesterday. Now I can watch it. Well, good. Greg Reefway, fiber is already coming down the road, then yes. It's, yeah, I'm hoping so. So the other thing is that geographically, Copley is larger with a smaller population. So we'll see. I'm still hopeful. Well, again, I think it's just a matter of time, really. We might not be super fast about it, but we'll get there. Marcus Aurelius 187. Did you add any to this slide since yesterday was revealed? No. So to put it into perspective, for me to add or subtract anything would be a real challenge, because to remake this file, no joke, it's more than 5 hours of computational power. So doing all the editing and everything like that is fairly fast. I can probably edit in a couple hours maybe. So the shooting takes a long time, just because you really can't speed that up. It's going to take about a minute and change per coral. Multiply that by X number of corals. That's a fixed thing. Now, when you get into the editing part, putting it on a timeline, making sure everything lines up nicely, getting all the overlays done, not that bad. It's a couple hours of my time. But then when I go and hit the 2 buttons, one is for stabilization and the other is for actually producing the output file. When I hit stabilize, it will literally take 5 hours to stabilize all the footage to show a 2-hour live show in 4K. When I then go to output that, it takes another 5 hours or so. So just to like say, oh, did you just add more corals? That ain't happening. Carlos Davila, did the contractor pick up his check? I did actually hand him his check yesterday. So he's all taken care of. Chillaxing. Hey Than, do you worry about bristleworms or you just let them do their own thing? I am 100% like pro bristleworm. I don't mess with them at all. Ben, on the other hand, he tries to kill them whenever possible because he's sick of getting stuck with them whenever he like grabs something and there's like a bristleworm underneath. But no, I don't hardly ever kill them. The only time whenever they do get killed is if I take like a rock that's full of them and move it into a tank that has copper bands. The copper bands love to eat bristleworms. Gabriel, should I change DI resin when it gets 3/4 used up? I heard that it can start leaching bad stuff after that point. You could just by playing it safe in that way. I was kind of slacking when I used DI, and so it was like leaching back stuff. So I remember the water coming out of my RO would be about 3 or 4, and then it should drop down to 0 after DI. But once my DI got spent, my water coming out of the DI stage was coming out at about 20. So nowadays I don't even use DI at all. The RO system does a good enough job. It gets it down to like 2 or 1 part per million. So I don't even worry about DI at all. Zara Macintosh. So it's not the fiber. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure what the deal is as to what was causing all those issues. Since I've downscaled resolution, it seems to be working a lot better. A lot better. So I'm certainly not complaining. Also, I apologize in advance. You see that the whole screen has a little bit of like a wobble to it. That is due to my slider. It really just needed to get maintained. It's been 5 years. It lived most of those 5 years out in the greenhouse. So the fact that this precision piece of equipment was still working after all this time was kind of a miracle, but it clearly needs to get sent back to the factory and polished up, because that amount of wiggle wobble that's in the picture is not acceptable. So hopefully by the time that I get it back and start shooting some video again, all that will be cleaned up. So all kinds of technical difficulties, right? Carlos Davila, picking up my first Recordia this week. Anything I should test before it goes into the tank? Well, I'm assuming for just a moment that your tank is fully cycled. If not, you really should wait till all of that is completely taken care of. You don't want to be adding corals into a cycling tank. But try to make sure that definitely no ammonia, definitely no nitrite. Those two things are toxic. You really want to wait till nitrates are down to something below 20, 25 to 20, lower than that preferably. But outside of that, it should be okay. Okay, so purple microdot. Given optimum conditions, how long does it take to grow one of those Favia frags to, say, a tennis ball size colony? Optimal? You're looking at like maybe 4 to 6 months, I would guess. Favia, like I'm looking at item number, let's see, what number am I on? Item number 28. Okay, so 28 will take a while because that is a true Favia. Favites tend to grow pretty quickly. So my 6 month time frame is really more for the Favites, the smaller polyp guys. The bigger polyp guys take a good long time to grow. I guess within a year it could, but Favia tend to be one of the more slow growing LPS out there. Okay, so Gregory Russo is asking about damsels. Damsels absolutely do eat pests in the tank. Could you expand on which ones you find useful but less aggressive to other inhabitants? The only ones that I really like are Springer damsels or Springer's damsels. They are blue and black speckled. They tend to be the most mild-mannered, and I specifically get them because they like to eat flatworms off the glass. Okay, Carlos. So if your tank has been cycled for more than a year, you really shouldn't need to worry about too much. Just make sure that you don't have insanely high nitrates, because a lot of corals don't necessarily like a lot of nitrates. But you're asking about Recordia specifically, and I think that even in that case, Recordia tend to be a little bit more resilient to that sort of thing anyway. Greg, do you use any kind of filter socks? If so, felt or nylon? We've used both before. I tend to not like filter socks of any kind. The type of system that I run, though, is going to be different. It's going to act very differently. So I tend to just not like filter socks, period, just because I think it's a maintenance nightmare. I would rather have areas of the tank or of the sump that naturally collect detritus and then siphon it out manually, rather than having a sock that kind of overflows and you have to kind of like go through and wash the socks and everything. I'm not really into that life. So if at all possible, kind of like set up a settling chamber to siphon regularly. Quick question: how do I quarantine corals correctly? Um, yeah. So you are not really likely to kill the new corals in the small tank so much. Um, so the whole point of quarantining corals is that you kind of want to give it a chance to uh, express any kind of problems, if any problems really exist. Now, in home aquariums, I think it's less of an issue to quarantine. But yeah, see, that's a tough one. A lot of times people don't know what they're even looking for when it comes to doing quarantine. Like the benefit that I have of having done this for like 30 something odd years is that I've seen all the things that could go wrong, or at least a whole bunch of things that could go wrong. And so if I was to look at a whole bunch of corals in quarantine, I can see from a mile away if they're going to have flatworms. I can see from a mile away if they're getting eaten by nudibranchs. I can see from a mile away if there's something up with those zoas. They're closed for some reason. There's always a good reason why they're closing up. If there's some weird infection going on, if there's like a snail that's eating something, you can tell. If you can tell if like a particular acro has like red bugs or something. But I think for people starting out, they wouldn't know what the heck to even look for. I mean, there's people that have worked here for years that simply can't see the problems, and a lot of the times it's not even because they're ignorant of those problems existing. It's literally because it's small, and not everybody has perfect eyesight of stuff that's close. I mean, and I'm not even talking about like my mom who's like, like older. It's that, I mean, like Ben doesn't see like stuff up close really well. I think like he needs reading glasses or something, or getting like those dental loops that allow you to focus on something about this far away, but it's like basically like a giant magnifying glass. Like it's really difficult for people that don't know what they're looking for or have no ability to actually see what they should be seeing to really take advantage of quarantine. It's not like, oh, you quarantine the corals and everything is okay. No, the quarantine is for observation. And I think that, yeah, setting up the quarantine is always a good idea, but your skills at observation are going to mean more than anything. And having said that, if you're having issues in your tank, in a smaller tank, it's actually easier to deal with. Once you have like 1,000-gallon systems and a plague breaks out, now you're in trouble. But if you have like a 50-gallon tank, yeah, it is always good to have a quarantine system, monitor that quarantine system, work on your powers of observation. But if something does go wrong, it's not a big deal. You can handle it in a 50-gallon tank. Aaron Schaefer, what's up with the camera shaking? My slider needs to get sent in for servicing. It's been 5 years, and now is like finally to the point where it's not working out. So had to go back to the factory. It's already sent back. It's not even here. So I apologize in advance for that little production thing, but that is totally on the physical end of the spectrum. Yeah, I know. It's when I saw it, I'm like, ugh, gross. So by the way, me sending that slider back, the repair bill might be 4 figures on something like that. It's going to be not that fun. Let's see. It would be ideal to have 3 tanks, 1 for de-stressing, 2nd for dip and quarantine, and 3rd for the final tank. Yeah, and also in your show tank, you can stock your show tank in such a way that the inhabitants kind of take care of a lot of problems. So, like one thing that people don't necessarily think of is they think of, oh, there's going to be like this awful pest, and this is going to like wreak havoc in my tank. If you have a really fast growing macroalgae, that will do way more damage than a lot of different types of pests that we actively try to dip for and try to eradicate. But most of us have tangs or foxfaces or some type of herbivore that handles that algae for us. And so even though the algae isn't necessarily a pest, guaranteed that is going to be way worse if you let that get out of line. So with that line of thinking, there are all these types of like critters that you can put in. Like you just saw like that blue damsel swim by. Those are great at handling a lot of different types of pests. Wrasses are great at handling all kinds of pests. Different types of herbivores are good at keeping macroalgae down, things like that. So even if you did run into a problem, because occasionally we do, sometimes our tank inhabitants do such a good job that a lot of times it goes undetected because our corals still look great, even though they have kind of this like low-lying issue that's going on. And so when I finally do see some evidence of it, of course I then go and dip everything. But a lot of times it's tough because it's not expressing any kind of problem because you have this positive predatory pressure going on in your tank. Gabriel, what the heck will get rid of feather dusters? A copper band butterfly will eat any and all feather dusters. Yeah, Marcus Aurelius has got it. Yeah, overnight. Overnight, that fish will eat all your feather dusters. Zach is asking, what are my thoughts on Bergia nudibranchs rhaptasia? I've never used them personally, but I've heard they work out great. I don't like nudibranchs, so I just don't trust them at all for anything, but no, plenty of people do have them for rhaptasia. I tend to go with either fish or shrimp. Gregory Russa, thank you for the $2 super chat. Thanks, love the channel, especially the coral spotlights. I appreciate it. Those take me forever to do. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Scripting is the reason why those things take me absolutely forever to do. Like if you saw my script for the Monteporo one that I just did, or the even longer Acroporo one, it's a book, just pages and pages. So the Monteporo one was so long that just me reading the script to the camera, I had to do it in different sections because my jaws and my mouth and everything was just getting so tired that the wrong words were just coming out of my mouth and I just couldn't talk. So I'm like, okay, time to take a break, come back to this later. Which is weird because I can sit here and talk for 2 hours to you guys and I don't have nearly that kind of problem. MF Recon, hey Tidal, did you get your light issue fixed? Not fixed yet, but we have a plan. It'll cost me a few $1,000s, but we're basically wiring in a dozen new circuits for the lighting. And that's for just this back half of the building. One day when I have aquariums up front, I have to do it again for the front half of the building. But we have these things. Somebody mentioned that what I'm trying to describe, they're called chases. It's basically this open section that we can run lines through, because I was already anticipating one of these days I'm gonna have to run new sets of lines, excuse me, and it turns out that now's that time. So we have to run new electrical lines through those. Lordy Lou, what water chemistry do you find the most difficult to keep stable? If you're talking water chemistry, for me it is alkalinity. Alkalinity tends to fluctuate quite a lot in my systems. That tends to be the one chemical parameter that if you have a lot of fast growing stony corals, a lot of SPS in a particular tank, you can get some crazy dips. I am actually looking forward to revamping all of my control systems because we use like some really old Neptune Apex systems just for monitoring. And I'm only currently monitoring the pH inside my calcium reactor and the temperature of the aquarium. I don't really have any other automation going on. Technically not true. We just got a skimmer head cleaner, and that has to be controlled, and so that is currently being controlled by one of the older Neptunes. But anyway, I want to get a newer Neptune system, and I want to get the continuous monitoring of calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium because we don't test nearly as often as we should. If I had to guess, we test maybe once a month, and going to a system like that will be tested at least once a day. And I'm just curious to see what my water chemistry actually is. The problem is I need 9 of them. And yeah, not really looking forward to that. Let's see, Drama D. Hey, Than. Hey, what's up, Drama D? Alt Rock Pearl, best fish for 29. No clownfish. Exactly. Clownfish is the wrong answer. So if you guys didn't know, I'm not a clownfish guy. That's my edgy fish take. Let's see. I would put in a wrasse of some kind, maybe a 6-line. Two please. What's up, Dan? What's up, two please? Liqueur, what's your suggestion for alk stability? Mine has always ran low and depletes fairly quickly. So I try to operate off of a strong baseline. And what I mean by strong baseline, I mean more frequent water changes and then running a calcium reactor. And that sets like a really like robust floor, let's call it. Now, when my stony corals are growing really quickly, it can still deplete alkalinity quite severely. In that case, I dose with bionic, just the alkalinity portion, and I try to do that slowly over the course of like a week or two, and that slowly raises it back up. But establishing that solid baseline for most home aquariums would be more than enough to keep up with the calcium and alkalinity demands. But if you don't want to use a calcium reactor, you can use 2-part and kind of dial in the alkalinity figure a little higher in terms of dosing. And at least that for us, we've never really even needed the calcium component for the 2-part system. It's always just been the alkalinities that always needed it. Neil Petroius, hi from Cape Town, South Africa. Hello. Great video on coral chemical warfare. I have a leather that's affecting the rest of my coral, and the info on your breakdown was awesome. Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, we've got some tanks too that have like huge leathers and stony corals in with them, and I'm sure that's not ideal. I'm sure they're not appreciating that one whatsoever. Intro to reefing. What do you think the best fish for a nano reef is? So I'm like ultra conservative when it comes to stocking. And so I would get a fish that is like in the wild, doesn't move more than like a foot away from some den of some sort. So I think like the best nano reef fish are things like little gobies and things like that just kind of like make their little camp out there. Yeah, like prawn gobies. I see a lot of people suggesting. Marcus Aurelius also suggested a goby there. Damsel is another one. You know, damsels get a bad rap. So this is so weird, right? Like I'm just like full of inconsistencies. Definitely don't like clownfish, but I put up with damsels. That's like opposite of the rest of the world. Than, to focus on coral and maybe identify problems, I was thinking of a magnifying glass and a UV flashlight. Don't worry about the UV flashlight. That's not really going to do anything. What else to make observation more effective? So I should do a video on this and put in an Amazon affiliate link for my trouble. But these dental loops are seriously good stuff. You know, like when you see like a medical show or something and the doctor's wearing like these little glasses that are like, you know, sticking out here. They're really good. So the idea is about 12 inches away from your face. It'll focus on something and give you like 3x magnification or something like that. And there are a couple that are on Amazon that are fairly inexpensive. Like there's some really cheap ones, like in the $50 to $100 range. And then there are some that are like $300. Now, the $300 ones are good enough for dental students to do surgery with. Like, and you can see that in the reviews of those dental loops. They are basically taking the place of a $4,000 professionally made one. So that's how good those guys are. You might just be able to get away with a $50 one. And so let's just think of it this way. If that $50 dental loop catches one problem ever, it has already made its money back. I personally would probably get the more expensive one just because why not? But not like 4,000. If it's good enough for dental students to be doing surgery with it, or even practicing dentists, go for it. Every damsel I've ever had was a big bully. They can be, yep. That is definitely true. And domino damsels are super mean, yes. Okay, so I'm a little bit far behind in chat, so I apologize. Okay, were the electrical drawings blueprints showing the dedicated lighting circuits that weren't installed correctly? No, they knew exactly what they were supposed to do. They just did it wrong. Jeff's Reef Tank. They did. So I keep on telling this story over and over and over again, but they did all kinds of stuff wrong. Like that, this issue that I had isn't the worst thing that they did. They wired random sockets at 220. Like that was a thing. Like not just a few, like a bunch of sockets were 220 volt randomly. Yeah, that was a problem. They wired up the fan that's in my greenhouse completely wrong. Like it immediately like blew the breaker every single time it came on. We couldn't figure out why. It's because it was really wrong. I couldn't even describe to you exactly how wrong it was, but it was basically frying itself every single time it was trying to kick on. This is like the tip of the iceberg as far as like my issues with the electricians. They are not coming back to fix anything here. Like my dad was saying, should I call them back and get them back over here to fix this? I'm like, no, I don't want them back over here to do anything. So no, that was not the issue. They knew what they were supposed to do. So they're either lazy and didn't want to do it, or they're completely incompetent, both of which could be the case. Real reef rock is good. So if you're talking about like the purple artificially made rock, I've personally never used it. I've seen it in other people's tanks. It looks fine. Purple microdot. I've pulled a few reefscapes to remove damsels. You know, they are really mean fish. They are just... At this point, like I have to keep trying to remind myself that like smaller aquariums are going to have the aggression issues more so than larger aquariums. Like most of my tanks from now on are going to be 240 gallons and above, so I don't really run into those issues nearly as much. But even in those 240s, when I do maintenance in the tanks, those fish will come out and make sure to bite me. So they're mean. Ruthless Rutherford, thanks for doing all that you do. Appreciate it. Hi from Arizona. A friend of mine was just visiting me from Arizona. And here's what's funny. We both don't like the weather here in Ohio, specifically because when it's 90 degrees here, it is worse than when it's 110 in Arizona because of the humidity. Like, you can be okay in over 100 degrees in places like Arizona or Nevada. I mean, I can wear a suit in 100 degrees out there. But here, when it's 90 degrees, I can't even be outside. It's awful. You say you don't like clowns. What about maroons? I think maroon clowns are the pound for pound meanest animal on earth. I definitely do not recommend anybody getting a maroon clown. Like, ever. If you know what's good for you. 2, please, electricians in training. They're not in training. So one dude, like the I'm gonna call him the foreman, okay? He was literally in his truck on the phone half the time, I would say, while everybody else is screwing up. And he was just handling like personal drama on the phone every single day that he was here supposed to be working. And then screw ups happen, and he has to come back and fix it, and screw ups happen again and again and again. And actually, like, I'm now like, now that I'm kind of like going through my PTSD over that, I'm like remembering all this other stuff that they did completely wrong, like really wrong, and stuff that I don't think I can fix necessarily. Ugh. Jeff's Reef Tank. I'm an electrical contractor. That's why I'm asking. The new contractor should check everything and get it re-inspected. So Jeff, funny you mentioned re-inspection, because these guys are like buddy with the inspectors, and there was stuff that the inspector was passing that should not have been passed. Like, I didn't make that much of a stink about it, but I'm like looking at this work, and he's just like, this line should actually be done differently. And I'm like, uh-huh. And he's like, but I'm going to pass it anyways. The hell? I mean, and some of this stuff is like dangerous. Like, it's 400 amp 3-phase that should be deeper in the ground. And it's not deeper in the ground because these people are clowns that I'm working with. And their only saving grace is that they're dirt cheap, which I am paying for now. But this all formulated at a time when I didn't realize that I was a general contractor at all. Like, at all. I thought somebody else was the general contractor, but no, that guy was just the builder. So I got stuck with a couple of contractors that had no business doing work of any kind. One of which was the septic guy, who is probably going to get sued if he still exists. And the electrician should not have been doing work here. The builder, coin flip, should not have been doing work here. Regardless. Yeah, so electrical contractor, getting it re-inspected, no faith. George M. What are your favorite corals that you have ever owned? Don't really have a favorite coral. I know I'm a huge bummer. People ask me that all the time. I really don't have a favorite one. And what are your favorite fish you've ever owned? I am leaning really heavy towards copper band butterflies as my favorite fish. I really like those. Try Texas. Yeah, Texas has like the worst of all situations. I think it's like hot and humid. Than, have you seen bubble snails available anywhere? I don't know what bubble snails are. I want to feed my coral, not grow spaghetti worms, which annoy my zoas. So spaghetti worms, I am coming to realize, are not that good for your tank. A lot of times people like them for like their sand beds and things like that, but they're breeding like crazy in my tank, and I know for a fact now that they are the reason why some of my corals have been dying. So I try to remove spaghetti worms whenever possible. It sucks. You know what? I'm kind of a softie at heart. I don't really like to even kill any pests. Like, I feel bad, but at the same time, it's like, this is kind of my livelihood, and you're messing it up for me. So you guys gotta go. I'm sorry. All you nudibranchs, all you Aptasia, out of here. One production, did you say 400 amp 3-phase? Yes. The service coming to this building is 400 amp 3-phase, and we had to do all kinds of work to get that installed in here. And that, at least, getting to the transformer is done well. The inside of this building was all goof troop. which we are fixing slowly but surely. I've called in some adult supervision on that, and it's getting done better. What I like a lot about Tidal Gardens is that he does not promote crap products companies shamelessly like most of the reef-related folks on YouTube. Okay, so I am fortunate that I don't have to sell out. So there's okay. So I'm not saying that they're even selling out. That's not a good thing to say. So there's a couple reasons why I don't do any kind of thing like that. Part of it is that we're an established channel and we have a completely different revenue stream. So I don't rely on sponsorships or anything like that. A lot of channels simply rely on it. So I mean, I'm not knocking anybody's business model there. The other thing is I talk to a lot of other YouTubers, and I think that like a lot of the brand deals that can be done in this industry are not that attractive to me anymore. So like I'm sure there are plenty of brands that do want to work with me, but it's less and less and less attractive because so my friend Tech Gear Talk, right? He does mainly camera reviews and stuff like that now. His channel is growing like gangbusters. It's an amazing channel. He has like roughly 20,000 fewer subscribers than me, okay? And the people that are calling on him to hopefully sell out are people like Sony and Walmart. Like that type of dollars is a lot more enticing to sell out for, right? That sort of thing is never like there's no Sonys, there are no Walmarts in this industry like that are going to be throwing so much heaps of cash at me that it's be like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and pitch something that I don't even care at all about. Like I would never pitch Walmart, right? But if you're going to pay me 10 grand a month, maybe I will pitch Walmart. So anyway, so it's been easy just to like not do that. But the other thing is having something to say about those products. Like I am perfectly okay pitching products that I use because I've used them for a while and I know a lot about them. But it's really hard when a company wants to hand you a new product and say, can you do a video on this? Because like, yeah, I could, except what am I really going to say? Like, I don't, I can say, okay, well, here is what it is. Here's what the spec sheet is, but that's not really helping anybody out, right? And yeah, so the sort of stuff that I generally would talk about that's even remotely equipment related is stuff that I've used for over a year, at which time everybody and their sister's mother's dog has probably done a video on it, and there's all these hobbyists that have had like a lot of experience with that product, and it's like you're doing a review on a 2-year-old product potentially. Oh, and that's another thing. I'm a really late adopter of a lot of technology because it's not so easy just to introduce a new piece of equipment that does something wildly different than what I currently do, because not everything works out. Like I've tried some things and a lot of my stuff dies, and it's a huge risk for me to implement something new to my systems. Like if I try this new product out and it goes south, that could have cost me 50 grand worth of inventory. Not a good risk reward there. So I'm slow to adopt, then slow to then have a commentary about anything. But I mean, for some smaller projects, I could see, you know, working with a company that if they just wanted to like do an entire themed tank around their whole technology, and maybe I just like to do a start to finish series on it or something like that. That might make sense. But I don't do a ton of things when it comes to like brands like that. That was a long rant, so let me catch up on some chat real quick. Gregory Russo, bright side, moving away from electrical contractor. Did your awesome plumber free up to plumb in the tanks? He was here yesterday. He showed up right before the live stream started yesterday, and we were just talking for just a little bit about the stuff that he needs to order just to get it in here, and hopefully within a couple weeks, a couple months, we'll have the tanks all situated and plumbed in. Yeah, hot and humid here, west side of Texas, 105 and 40% humidity. That's pretty gross. Yeah, Texas, definitely not fun in the summer. pH really suffers. Don't know why pH would suffer in the summer. Not sure about that. That's what runs my radio station. I'm impressed. Hats off. I totally don't know the context of that. Sorry. Yeah, just did a water change on my junk tank and found around 20 plus baby Trocus snails. I am so jealous. I'm jealous of everybody out there that's having like all kinds of success growing Trocus snails. I have no luck at all, and that they are my favorite snails by far. If we did breed the heck out of them here, I wouldn't even sell them. I would just use them in my tanks. George M, let's rephrase so you don't bum people out. Do you have a favorite color scheme that a coral has in your care? So I like a lot of the colors that you don't see a lot of, like the reds, yellows, and blues. And there's actually a favia, or maybe it's a favites. I think it's a favia that it's either there's two that look very similar. There's the Ultron, and there is Afterburner, favia or favites, and they have that color scheme to them. I think that's very cool. Starship Briefing finally made a live sale. How's it going? Going pretty well. We did the live, so this is like the bonus live show because yesterday's had all kinds of technical difficulties. The start of this one did too, but yeah, glad you could make it. Jake F. Fan, sounds like you got a residential electrical contractor. Actually, I didn't. They are good for houses, but worthless for what you needed. No, they're worthless for houses too. This guy is not a residential only. He does major projects at universities and stuff. So if, by the way, if any of you guys are a student at Kent State University, be careful what you plug stuff into there. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Let's see. Different corals seem to react different to spaghetti worms. Duncan hates them. Trumpet coral looks like it is. Yeah, so I know that, for example, they don't like mushrooms, don't like them, and my blastomussa don't like them. Did you know that Walmart is suing Tesla? Why not? No, I did not know that. Can Euphilias touch? So Squidderp12 is asking. I know if hammers and frog spawn can, but what about cristata and torches? I think they all can touch to some degree. I think that they all also are fighting to some degree, but it's not like super aggressive. When in doubt, give them plenty of room. Okay, gotcha. So you have to seal up the house and you run into CO2 issues. Got it. Yeah, I could see that. MC Hammer Torch, nice name. Love your channel. Learned so much from you. Greetings from Berlin, Germany. Oh, thank you very much. Glad to see the German crowd checking in. I have Trocus in both other tanks. 3 years now, 2, but never had babies. Had an invert QT tank, and there's, huh. Yeah, I mean, it could be just not having fish. That could, I mean, it's entirely possible that they're laying eggs on the glass and the fish just come and eat them. Will there be any special corals in the stream today again? Nothing in that income bracket, I guess. Like that bounce mushroom at the end. So that bounce mushroom, it didn't sell during the live show, but a lot of people were asking questions about it when we had our barbecue here, which was I think like just the week after that, and somebody from the barbecue ended up purchasing it. $1,000, guys. And it'll be a while before we ever sell another one of those. Regarding leftover food in the tank, what would be the best animal to clean up any leftover food? I'm thinking hermit crab or Nacerius snail. Not the hermit crab. I'm definitely not a favor of that. If I had to choose anything, honestly, it's probably just going to be bristleworms. They do a really good job of that. Neil Pelling, what would you say is the best remedy for green bubble algae and Aptasia? Green bubble algae, for me, has always been fox faces. They do great with bubble algae. Aptasia, it's going to be the copper band butterfly. And if you don't have room for either of those, you could probably go with a peppermint shrimp for the Aptasia. And for green bubble algae, if you can't fit the fish, unfortunately, that's going to have to be manual removal and siphoning on your part. By the way, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but green bubble algae Valonia is a single cell organism. I think it's supposed to be like the biggest single cell. So like when you get like these golf ball sized things of Valonia, that is literally one cell. I learned that on the internets. Gregory Russo, would a fox face, wrasse, and tang be overstocked for a 90-gallon in regards to pest control? It can get tight, especially if the fox face and tang get larger. Now, the fox face and the tang are kind of overlapping in utility. Like if you have the fox face for algae control, you really don't need the tang because there's nothing the tang is going to provide that the fox face didn't already. As far as the wrasse goes, depends on the size of the wrasse. Certain types of wrasses that I like Melanaris, tend to grow very large. Some others stay smaller, like pygmy wrasses and six lines and things like that tend to stay smaller. Let's see. Somebody suggesting an emerald crab. I've heard emerald crabs are more hit and miss than most, and I worry about crabs of any kind. Wow, I actually caught up with chat. And so far it looks like the stream isn't crashing, so maybe the entire issue was with trying to do 1440p. Interesting. I might have to kind of go easy on the 1440p live streams for just a little while until things clear up a little bit. Now the other thing I'm thinking as far as algae control, and this is just me pondering, but I'm getting more and more okay with the idea of trying sea urchins, but specifically baby sea urchins, because as they get bigger, they kind of turn into bulldozers that kind of grab stuff and walk around with them. Or maybe it was my electricians, that's why my internet sucks. Could be. My internet connection here, at least the wiring in the walls, was done by the electricians. But no, we kind of double checked their work there. It is all Cat 6. So theoretically, in the building should be 10 GBE. Greg Reefboy, hi Than. Pipefish are good for pest cleanup in frag tanks. Yes, I do like pipefish, specifically dragonface pipefish. The only problem is that I've had them before, and I accidentally kind of killed them because I put in power heads that were too large, and they got sucked in. Yeah, not my best time. But in the future, I do kind of want to have them in certain tanks. And I'll just be a lot more careful about having, power heads with like strong suction in the tanks themselves. Two, please. What are the white crabs with black masks that look like cartoon bank robbers? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think I've seen them before, but I've never kept them myself. Ah, intro to reefing. This could just be a thought about the trochus snails, but you scrape your glass. I know many lay eggs on the glass, and you might be scraping them off. I definitely do scrape the glass, and that could be the issue. But I don't scrape off every face. So they do have some real estate where they might be able to use. Um, but again, it could just be fish. Like I've got a lot of fish that would be more than happy to eat little eggs and stuff like that, or probably even little snails. Yeah, the maybe the plumber showing up yesterday like messed it all up. So I have noticed that in the tanks that we have that do have sea urchins, they're looking really clean. I do kind of like that. As far as like as like an invertebrate herbivore, they're probably that's a tough one. I would say they're probably number two on my list. Like I would say the trochus are number one, and maybe urchins are number two as far as herbivores go. Asteria snails are number three, and the only reason they're number three is because they die for dumb reasons all the time. So Marcus Stevenson, I love wrasses. I really want a leopard, but hopefully I'll be upgrading tanks soon and thought about going bare bottom. I have a bare bottom tank that has a leopard in it, and it seems to be okay. Yeah, I think it'd be a lot better if you do have substrate though. Now, I was talking to Laura from Eco Marines in the UK, and she has like a lot of experience with fish because she ran a wholesale outfit that did a lot of fish in the past, and she has like horror stories of leopard wrasses having poor survivability because of how they're collected and stuff. Hey Than, so this is Dwight Kirby. You should do a floating aquascape with zoas in your display tank. What do you mean by a floating aquascape? Like actually floating, or uh, having like the illusion of floating? Fish King. I have a candy cane with the same colors as that Favia. It's in the tank you see on my channel. Okay, cool. Illusion of floating. Yeah, I've been thinking. I've only thought just a tiny bit when it comes to these show tanks. Uh, Having an all Zoa tank would be kind of cool. There's a lot of little like species specific tanks that I want to try, and kind of do some YouTube series of them over the course of like a year or two. So like showing the setup, showing how they're different from one another, and just kind of like stepwise how I want to go about maintaining them and stuff like that. So for example, like Ben wants to try a seahorse thing. I wanted to try a non-photosynthetic thing, things like that. And then just kind of, if I have enough tanks, I could do an update once a week on one of the tanks. And by the time that I got through all the tanks and came back around to that same tank, 2 months would have gone by. And that way, like maybe some things are actually new and different in that 2 month time frame. Do you have a peppermint angelfish? I do not. You know what was really weird? The Waikiki Aquarium in Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, technically Waikiki, Hawaii, had a peppermint angel. And I happened to be in Hawaii on vacation. And I made a special visit to the aquarium specifically to shoot that fish. And it had died 2 days before I got there. Like they had kept it alive for years, and they lost this fish. So I've never even seen a peppermint angel in person. So a big reason why peppermint angelfish are so difficult to get And it's because of how deep in the ocean that they are. So even with like specialized rebreathers and stuff like that, I think that when you go down to that depth, you only have like your time down there is less than 10 minutes to find and catch one of these fish. And if you guys know anything about diving, and especially deep diving, once you go down past 100 feet, the dynamics of diving really change. You can't stay down there very long. Everything has to be like these custom mixes of gas that you're breathing, and it's very, very dangerous. And coming up is also dangerous. There's a lot of different procedures that you have to do. And these procedures were established because people died not doing it properly or not fully understanding what was going on. And yeah, it's like you stay up here for 5 minutes because people used to stay up here for 4 minutes before going up, and they kind of got the bends and stuff like that. So yeah, there's all kinds of like really bad issues that could go on down there. And there's also like this thing that happens when you're down that low for any kind of extended period is that you get this nitrogen buildup in your blood, and that has this intoxicating effect on you. So it's kind of like you're getting high on laughing gas, and it's really kind of scary because the way that you have to deal with it is you have to focus through it. If you just let it take you away, you're gonna die down there. Like you're gonna not do any of the safety procedures. You might just stay down there and not even come up. Like that is how badly it affects your neurology. You're literally having to fight your own biochemistry when you're down at those depths. So people, yeah, they die all the time trying to get like these deep sea reef fish. Yeah, yeah. So diving is fun. Stay around like 30 to 50 feet to see all the good stuff. When you go down any deeper than that, there's really not a whole lot to see. Don't be a hero. Like the deepest I've ever been was probably 110 feet. And I didn't get super loopy, but yeah, it's down there. Your body feels very different. And I was down there to look at at a a wreck, which was a World War II fighter jet, and it was actually kind of cool because you go down there and you don't really see anything until like you're really close, and all of a sudden like a plane comes into view. And what was really neat about the plane was that it's in this middle of like this sandy area, and there are thousands of garden eels in the sand. And as you approach, they all vanish. But you can always see like 50 feet away or so. Well, maybe 50 feet's not quite. Maybe like 10 to 20 feet away are all the garden eels. But the ones close to you have all hidden. But yeah, it looks like this like grass bed of garden eels. I remember hearing about the peppermint angelfish death. Not fun losing $30,000 fish. No, it is not. I mean, they didn't pay for it, but still. Yeah, just finding, let alone in 10 minutes catching it. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And by the way, every single time you make one of these dives, in addition to being like really really dangerous, it's really really expensive. Like just going down there, because I mean, when you're down there, your lungs are like this big, so like the amount of gas that you blow through is pretty intense. Like that entire supply is just enough to get you down there and get you back up alive. Yeah, there was a show on nitrogen narcosis on Discovery, and they were simulating in a hyperbaric chamber. They had to stop because the guys were seconds away from dying. Yeah, so there was this other YouTuber. I think it's like, oh shoot, I don't remember his channel, but they did a simulation of what happens in like fighter jets or something like that. Shoot, what was it? No, it was basically just like low atmosphere, and he had to do like these very specific tasks to do like a safety check. Okay, and it's literally like just three different things. You turn this knob, press this button, turn this knob, and then he would do it just fine. He'd do it just fine. He'd do it just fine. But as like as the air was like thinning or something like that, it got to the point where, you know, he's having like, you know, like the laughing fits and everything. He couldn't focus. And, you know, like the guys that are monitoring the whole thing, they're, you know, with respirators and gas masks and everything like that. And they're like, listen, you have to do this or else you're not going to make it. You're going to die. And he and this guy was like kind of just like sitting there kind of like laughing and losing it. And he was like, I don't want to die. But he couldn't do these three things. And I just can't even imagine like how scary that would be, being underwater and having to, like, you know, just to focus through to do all those things that you have to do. Or worse yet, like maybe your dive partner has gone gonzo and like he's having trouble, and then you have to like try to yourself do everything that you need and also get him to safety. Yeah, it's scary stuff. I mean, diving is like, as far as like a non-impact recreational activity, hyper dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Or even if you do know what you're doing. Okay, back to corals. Are Superman Monty encrusting or plating? Supermans are encrusting. Somebody might have already answered. Yeah, like so free diving is like really interesting. I follow one Instagram account from this woman that does free diving to get closer to sharks. I think her Instagram is Sharks Need Love, or Sharks Need Love Too, and it's super impressive. They can stay down there for like 5 to 10 minutes, and it's like those guys just like look like freaking superheroes whenever I see them. And there's also like this mammalian dive response that happens when you dive deep, and it's, yeah, it's like your whole like metabolism slows down and you can stay down there. Really cool stuff. But now I'm like so out of shape. Like there's like these exercises that you can do. So like from my house to here is roughly 300 feet. So what you can do is like hold your breath and walk the entire distance. And I'm like, I couldn't make it a third of the way. It's pretty bad. Let's see. All the best stuff is within your regular sport diving depths. True. Yes. From between 30 to 65 feet, that is all you need. Yeah. Anything deeper than that, it's like there's not like really cool coral down there. It's all like dirt and dust and sediment. VC is asking, hi, can Goniopora and Alveopora touch? Sorry if this was already covered. You know what? They can, but I can kind of tell that like Goniopora get like these little white tips on their tentacles, and that's kind of an accumulation of stinging cells. So they are probably trying to sting each other, but we've kept them in close proximity without any issues. One production, have I ever tried free diving? I tried. Didn't go that well. Like for whatever reason, it's that first 10 feet that always get me. It's like my ears feel like somebody's like sticking like an ice pick into my ears. My nightmare dive was at night, Lake Tanganyika alone, and at night with Nile crocodiles nearby. You know what? People totally underestimate crocodiles, but every year some diver or some coral collector specifically in Australia gets nabbed by a saltwater crocodile. Like they're really smart too. They watch for the boats, and if they see that same boat come back, they know where the divers want to go, and they'll snipe. They'll try to snipe a diver, and you know those things are just gigantic dinosaur monsters. Free divers are a different breed. I can't hold my breath like that. I've tried exercising. Yeah, I just have to keep in my tank. Yeah, yeah. And here's the other thing. It's like I think that you have to enjoy what it is you're doing too. And the entire time I'm thinking about drowning or holding my breath, you know? And it's like I can't focus. So I'm either gonna snorkel, which is it's an okay activity, but I really like diving, and I do like the idea of free diving in the sense that you don't have all this junk on you, because it's really cumbersome, and a lot of times just having all this equipment really kind of takes you out of it. But at the same time, it's a much more relaxed experience too, which I do like. Speaking of relaxed experiences in diving, one thing that was really cool was I was out with these, well, it's a dive company, and one of the girls there was like, part time she does the dive thing, and the other parts of the time, she's like a yoga instructor, and she has like such incredible control of breath, and is so fit that we went on like a 3 tank dive. So that's basically like three 45-minute dives, let's say. And I used up all of my oxygen in those 3 tank dives. She didn't use up all her oxygen in 1 tank during that entire time. Like that's just so like mind-bogglingly cool. Like I wish I was able to do that, but not being that much into yoga and being over the age of 40, it's not looking good for me. But it was cool. It just goes to show you like how fit and how good you can be at a particular skill. That chick on Shark We Got Bit diving by a croc with hundreds of sharks around. Go figure. Sharks are super safe. Hate to break it to you, but like all this all this villainy that they've gotten slapped with. The last thing in the whole world I'm worried about when I'm diving is a shark. I'm more worried about some idiot that's in my dive company doing something stupid and getting everybody in danger is way more likely than having anything happen with a shark. I've actually done diving with bull sharks that are in Mexico, and bull sharks are like one of the most dangerous sharks to get bit by, and like they're pretty harmless too. Long story short, like the guy we had to line up in a line and kind of like stay closely packed, because if you have a gap between you, they swim between you, and then people get freaked out. But the guys on the ends get bumped, and it's kind of because they just they swim in circles around you, and like the guys on the end just have to sit there, and like these 500-pound big bull sharks are just like bumping into them on the sides. Kind of hilarious, but no, totally safe. 40, no way. True story. Why do I look like I'm 50? In your new building, are you going to use all LED radions? Are you going to use some T5 high output fixtures or even a combo LED? So right now, we're only looking at radions. Um, if something happens, like I'm unhappy with how they photograph or something like that, I might do something different for maybe just the photography tanks. But I'm gonna give the LED thing a fair shake in this building, mainly because of like the heating and cooling issues of this building. Like this is a very well insulated building, all things considered, and the issue that I run into is, yeah, it'll maintain temperature unless you turn on 150 lights, right? I've basically created my own little hot box in here. So um, if those lights are LED, I have some ability to control that. If those lights are metal halide or T5, there's no chance of me cooling this place down. So a lot of that really comes down to just like the heating and cooling aspects. But having said that, I hear such good things about this particular light. Like so many people that are pretty good at this whole hobby, uh, they swear by these lights. So, and they're not like new school Johnny come lately types either that have just happened to set up a nice tank. They've been doing it for a very good long time. And they too were considering T5 metal halide type stuff. And when they decided to go with these Gen 4 Radions, they were very happy. So fingers crossed, hopefully I have a similar experience to them. Neil, how long would you say it takes for hammers, torches, corals to split? So we're talking about splitting, not budding, right? Because Indonesian hammers, torches, frog spawn, they tend to bud off pretty quickly, and that's kind of nice. The Australian guys don't bud so much, they actually split, and those take forever. Forever. Alfredo says, looking at a big bull shark in the eyes was a mystical experience. I was terrified, but I remember thinking there was a person in there. So what I thought was kind of interesting was that we were, before we started feeding the water and getting the bull sharks to really come hang out, there are areas where the bull sharks were just swimming normally, and we weren't bunched up there. And I just remember this thing would just do like circles around us. And what was the weirdest feeling was like we were kind of like just having our knees down in the sand, and we just kind of hang out there and just watch, right? You don't want to have your arms all out when there's bull sharks around. They come from behind. But anyway, so you kind of sit there, arms crossed, knees in the sand. And every single time that this shark would come swing by, for some reason, I felt like the water or something just pushed me gently forward. It was like the weirdest feeling. And I was like, I'm not imagining this, but every single time this shark comes by, I'm like gravitating ever so slightly towards it. I'm like, I don't want to fall into this stupid shark. I distinctly remember that feeling. Desert reef. This is a good question, and you're not going to necessarily anticipate this answer. What is the deal with radion reliability? So I would say that all of my concerns regarding radion reliability are totally quenched, if that's the right word even to use for it, because of Ecotech's customer service. I've been dealing with them for years now, and I've had plenty of problems with on the device level with some of their products, okay? Not so much their lighting, but on their pumps and things like that, okay? Never once have they given me any issue whatsoever about getting a replacement in a timely fashion with the least hassle imaginable. So we hooked up 60 or so lights downstairs. One of the lights was a dud. The return process went smoothly as heck. Like, they are so good on the customer service end that is one of the main reasons actually that I decided to go with a lot of Ecotech stuff. Is not every company that gets hyped up in this hobby is like that. There's a lot of companies that make a halfway decent product, but when it comes to customer service issues, it's a total deal killer. So like, there's certain companies that I just won't buy. Like, I will buy an inferior product to avoid having to deal with you guys specifically. So no, as far as like any reliability issues with Radions, first of all, I don't really run into them, and second of all, I've had such an overwhelmingly positive experience that yeah, I would go all in on that. I'm more worried about whether they're going to color up my corals, frankly, compared to that. But even then, I mean, I hear such glowing reviews from people that use them regularly. Art of War, Gold Torch purchase last year, still doing good, Dan. Knock on wood. By the way, the shop looks great. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that the Gold Torch is still doing well, because that is a big dollar coral nowadays. I remember, and I've told this story before, but I'll just tell it again. But there was a time when these things were under $100 a polyp, and under $100 a head. And one person had purchased one from me, and he had grown it out from one head to 9 heads. and was looking to downsize tanks. And he was trying to sell this on a local forum, and nobody would buy it. He was asking $90 for 9 heads. And you know what's even dumber? I didn't buy it. Like, what the heck was I thinking? I mean, like nowadays, for a gold torch, fully aquacultured, would probably be close to $1,500 per head for 9 heads. Like, you'd be talking about like a car. Like that could buy you a car. Insane. How about a neat little tank in your office upstairs? Heck no. I need this place to be quiet. Tiger sharks, they're doing an experiment, turning your back on them makes them want to bite. Doesn't surprise me. If I mean, I think like predators in general like to attack stuff from behind. Like my cats, oh, they love to get behind me. Like that's like their number one goal is just to get behind people. Yeah, that works for tigers too. Yeah, it works for every cat. I use 2 Kessel A360s on my 75. They're a year old and they work great, just like the day I bought them. Cool. You know, this particular live show is the first live show that I shot using a Kessel A360 shining down to give it some front light and some illumination. And I have to say, it's worked out really nicely. The only issue that I ran into was some jitteriness in the slider, and some shots are worse than others. Like some are like really bad. Like this one here, not the worst thing I've ever seen. But I'm definitely happy with how the imagery has come out. It's really difficult to show good fluorescence, and at the same time also show daylight in the same shot. Don't people in India wear masks with eyes painted on the back to prevent tigers from sneaking up on them with their back turned? They might. So it's funny how before I had like some house cats, I wanted to get some like near wild giant exotic cats like a savanna or a serval. And the thing that stopped me from getting something like that came down to how much they were going to pee on everything uncontrollably. So that was a dumb reason, but that did prevent me from getting like something like a serval cat. Now I know how strong a regular like 18-pound house cat is. A 45-pound serval would handle you. Like just handle you. I mean, you're actually in danger when you start to talk about stuff like that. And then people that buy like a tiger cub for like their daughter's sweet 16 party or something, don't do that. So first of all, like a tiger cub is already like 50 pounds. In 3 months, that thing is going to be 200 pounds and completely unmanageable. Like that thing is going to tiger handle you, and you might not survive that. From a 3-month-old lion or a tiger. And then I once saw like some particular place that had a tiger that they had to take to the vet, and they kind of had to chain this thing down to a flatbed of a truck. Okay, so this tiger is not feeling well and had some like chains, and they kind of chained this thing down to a truck flatbed. And they started the truck, and then it kind of lurched a little bit, and so that the tiger like bumped its head on the back glass of this truck, and it freaked out this tiger. This tiger like bench presses up on the bed of the truck and rips this truck in half, like completely obliterated this truck, like from the strength of just it's just his 2 front limbs. I'm like, hell to the no. Get a Bengal cat. Bengals are pretty cool. I have to say, I like them. Yes, Diacanthus. Oh, it wasn't me just imagining the vibrations. Nope, that was a slider issue. Okay, let's see. Alfredo. The only thing I know that I'm allergic to is tigers. I burst out into rashes. Ugh. Yeah, Intro Dream, have you seen the videos of people in the Middle East letting their tigers chase their friends around in cages? Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Actually, I do know what's up with that. It's pure stupidity. I This is probably TMI, okay? I will never, ever, ever watch a video of a big animal messing some dude up and not find it hilarious. Like some dude messing with a crocodile and it coming down on his head. I'm cool with that. Like I once saw what looked like a Manhattan penthouse, and this guy was getting attacked by his pet lion. And like I'm not kidding. This was like a penthouse, like Russian oligarch rich penthouse that had a lion, and this lion was messing this guy up. I'm just thinking, this is pure hilariousness. I can watch this all day. Um, I saw some guy totally lose control of his cheetah, because that could happen. So having been around cheetahs, like because there is this wildlife preserve in like central Ohio. It's called the Wilds. It's actually pretty cool. It's like a big like open air safari sort of thing, and they have cheetahs there, and every single one of those cheetahs wanted to eat all the people. Like it was no question in my mind that those cats wanted to eat us. Like the way that they're just like hanging around, like the kids would walk along the fence, and those cheetahs would follow those kids right along along that fence. Yeah. Beware the power of Gen 4 Pro is very strong light. Yeah, I'm hoping to run them at under 50%. Team Red, hi from South Africa. Stream looks good. Thank you. Hey, sometimes it's like I just assume that the stream is going to look good. I can't assume that at all. Saying putting your arm in a croc's mouth and getting it bitten off. Yeah, what do you think was going to happen? Exactly. Yeah, big cat tongues are scary as it is, let alone their muscle mass, teeth, and speed. Yeah, so their tongues, I guess. So I guess. Oh, by the way, we're almost to the end here. 155. I think we're going to be going to 180, and then calling it. Yeah. So cat tongues, like big cats, I guess like lions can lick your skin off. Like that's how abrasive it is. Yeah, if you're dumb enough to put yourself to get in a spot to get eaten by a large predator, you get what's coming to you. Especially if it's in your Manhattan penthouse. Like you have way more money than sense, and now you're gonna get tackled by a giant 300-pound lion that you can do nothing about, and your friend is putting this on the internet. Amazing. And just think of like how expensive it would be to feed a tiger. I mean, think of how much meat that thing would consume on a monthly basis. Like that's probably a $5,000 per month food bill. Ugh. Having said that, I still would probably have a serval if it didn't pee on everything. It's like that thing. What was that? That cartoon Archie or Archer, where there's that. I think it's an ocelot that just pees on everything. Yeah. No, my cats are plenty destructive enough. I mean, I've got pretty much everything that's in my house. I have just given up on trying to save. So like my sofa is like it's only half upholstered now. I've got a sofa that I got from like Macy's or something. It's like made of like fake leather. I think half of the fake leather has been ripped off and eaten by my cats. The problem is that people who own lions and stuff don't have to care about how much money they consume. Honestly, a lot of the people that do have lions and stuff are like podunk poor, because it turns out that lions are not that difficult to acquire in some of these states that have like really lax exotic animal laws, and they're like really poorly kept. Like they're bought by people that have no business buying some exotic animal like that. USDA and OSHA have ruined natural selection in the USA. Uh, I would argue that OSHA less so. Seeing how a lot of crews have worked construction, I don't think that they care about OSHA. I have personally witnessed some very non-OSHA things happen. Yeah, it ain't OSHA. Have your cats taken any interest in the fish? So my cats don't make it out to the aquariums at all. Um, they probably would love it. Strangely, they don't like to eat fish. Sometimes I have sushi in the house, and just for fun, I'll cut them a little piece of like raw tuna or raw salmon. They don't touch it. Having said that, one day if I ever do have them around a tank and a fish jumps out, I'm sure that at that point they're gonna go ahead and eat that thing. But no, whenever I feed them directly, it's not so much. Think of how little control you have in your house cats and then blow that up for a huge wildcat. Yeah, that's true. But basically, my house is just a place where I sleep and eat 1 or 2 meals a day at most, probably closer to 1.5 meals a day. And the rest of it is my cats. Like, yeah, they're just, they run the place. And it's really bad when a lot of the carpentry, like future like remodeling decisions that I'm making are kind of centered around how well it would work for the cats. Like, yeah, you know what? A giant window here would be good so they could look out and stuff. Totally. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Oh, by the way, both of my cats decant this. Both of my cats now would be cord eaters. They're great. Any secret sauce on how to manage to get such awesome colors? Um, so I would say it's a combination of really good light. So we're using like 8 bulb T5 fixtures, so you can get like a lot of different variety of bulb combinations in those things. And I think feeding has a lot to do with it. Like we've gone pretty heavy lately on feeding stuff like a lot of the powdered plankton stuff, as well as a lot of the frozen rotifers and cyclopes. And on top of that, a lot of amino acids. So especially the latter two things, a lot of like the really oily stuff, as well as the amino acids, have done like a really good job with our SPS. I have noticed that. So I think, yeah, consider nutrition, but when you also are amping up the amount that you're feeding and the stuff that you're feeding, you might have to go extra heavy on the nutrient removal aspects. So might have to get a better skimmer, might have to consider doing a little bit more chemical filtration of some sort and more water changes. Lothario Bow. Hey Than, need some help battling bryopsis. You're not going to like my answer. Just saying that right off the bat. I've tried fluconazole, reflux twice, and lettuce slugs. Nothing seems to work. Can you help me? I'll donate $1.34 towards your trip to the Bahamas. Um, so, unfortunately, I think the answer that's going to work best for you is a siphon tube and a toothbrush daily for a couple weeks, because whatever is feeding that might not be necessarily something that you're introducing to your tank. It might be coming from the rockwork itself, and a lot of times it just needs to expend the nutrient that's in your system. Like your issue really isn't a herbivore or killing bryopsis issue. There is a food source that's really working out for the bryopsis that the strangely the best way to deal with it, in addition to doing like aggressive water changes to dilute it, is to have the bryopsis actually grow, but then you remove it physically. I don't think cats really care about eating everything. They just want to kill stuff. That's been like shown. Like there have been studies that have like followed some cats around and stuff like that, and like they wear cameras, and they found out that like 70 something percent of the stuff that they kill they don't eat. They just like to kill stuff. Oh, I love to pick the videos of people that get out of the car to take pictures of wildlife and they get chased down by the animal. I've seen somebody try to mess with buffalo. Like buffalo, they look so, like American buffalo, they look so peaceful. And this one guy was messing with it. And this thing started chasing it around, like ring around the posy of of a big pine tree. And eventually, like this guy was bad at the ring around the posy part, and this somehow he got juked by this big buffalo, and the buffalo like tried to gore him and send him up, and I think he got launched easily 30 feet into the air into that tree, like totally jacked this guy up. Another time I saw somebody slap a moose. I'm sure this video's probably been taken down by now, but yeah, like a moose, like some, like the legs of a moose are like 12 feet tall or something like that, right? This animal is, it's almost like in space alien big how big a moose is. This guy gets out of his car and just like slaps it on the butt like it's like a regular horse or something. He didn't make it back to his car. Gabe's Tampa Reef, $1.34. Thank you so much. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, AM. I'm a fan of shallow tanks. My question is, what would be the minimum height for good viewing and coral growth? Thinking 16 inches. So we have 12-inch tall tanks in the greenhouse. That's like most of the tanks are 12 inches. It's too short. It's mainly for the fish, though, not so much the corals. The corals are fine, but the fish that I want to keep, I can tell that it's not deep enough for them. 16 might be better. Like the tanks that I had made are 15 inches. I think that I'm going to live with the 15-inch deep tanks for a little while, see how I feel about them. But I'm strongly considering that the next size tank I'm going to get is going to be 18 inches deep. That might be a mistake, but I think that 18 might be the magic number for the best mix of good for the animals plus ease of maintenance. It also depends on the size of the tank that you're talking about. My tanks are going to be gigantic, so I need to be able to reach quite a distance into the tank, and quite a ways in and then deep. Not a good combination. So my show tanks are going to be a good litmus test because they're going to be 24 inches deep and they're 4 feet front to back. It might be a little bit of a maintenance nightmare. We'll see. But I think my ideal tank size would be something that's 10 feet long, maybe 3 or 4 feet wide by 18 inches deep. So hopefully that answers your question. 16 inches is a good place to experiment with. Just didn't know if it was even possible. Honestly, I didn't know either. Good to know. For example, my cat used to leave me headless critters by the door constantly. Yeah, I think that's the way of showing affection. My kink is people being cruel or hurtful towards wildlife and getting what they deserve right after. Yeah, there is some degree of that. Like whenever I see like a bullfighter take the worst end of that trade, I am super okay with that. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to see like animals get messed with. But if an animal is gonna get messed with, I'm trust me, that's pure entertainment, gold entertainment. Alien scientist fan, hello from Montreal. Hello. Little known fact, I used to live in Montreal. I was a little kid, probably only about maybe 3 or 4 years old, but I lived there for a couple of years, and I would really like to come back and visit. I haven't been to Montreal in a really long time, but I'd like to visit Toronto, Montreal, that whole area. Gabe's Reef Tampa. Why are you going with glass tanks when it would be more cost effective to go with plastic tanks? Very good question. So with a lot of people like to go with plastic tanks, and there's a lot of good reasons to go with plastic tanks, but what I've noticed is that the most important thing is to be able to see through the sides of the walls into the tank. Observation is more important than everything. So a lot of like our pest issues, our neglect issues are all because we can't observe well enough. We don't really have the problems in glass aquariums, and almost all of our problems originate in tubs where the monitoring is just simply not possible. So I know a lot of places, a lot of good places, in fact, do the whole tub thing. I can pretty much guarantee that no container of water here will ever not be visible, including our sumps. Like our sumps are three-side are acrylic, that's like solid, but we always have one viewing pane. And on top of that, I intentionally demanded that the inside of the entire sump be white so that I can see stuff that's gone wrong better. It's all about observation. And I can pretty much guarantee that a glass tank of the same size in the greenhouse versus a tub of the same size, the glass tank will be several times more productive just because we're able to get in there a lot more frequently. How do you feel about growing coral on ornaments? Would you enter one of these contests? I don't really know what you're talking about. I know that some people like to grow corals on like some ceramic sculpture of some sort. I think it's kind of clever, maybe, in a way. But it's not. I guess it's not really my thing. I haven't really messed with it too much. But I mean, having some like really like unique custom shapes, that is kind of cool. But I haven't really messed with it too much. So this is the last coral. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the impromptu do-over live stream. Hopefully you guys got a lot of your questions answered. If you have any last minute things, now's the time before we all log off. Do you build your own sumps or do you buy them from a source? I have them custom made locally. Lothario Bow, that fungia is about to lift off. Yeah, that fungia had to basically be put on there, shot, and then taken right off because they're not photo friendly in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, so I pretty much like when you're talking about the sizes that I talk about, it's all has to be made custom. My glass tanks, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have made not just custom, but on site going forward, just because like the transport cost of these things is getting insane. So long story short there, that's the glass thing. For the acrylic stuff, I am very fortunate to have like a good company locally that is able to do a lot for me. So I've hooked him up with a lot of business lately. I think that over 10 grand probably in custom projects. Like he was the one who ordered in all of my tank stand material, like the PVC and the polycarbonate layer. He built my sump. He's building a lot of racks for corals for the coral plugs. He's doing some shelving and stuff like that for pumps and things like that. So it's worked out nicely. Two please, $19.99. Thank you so much. Just for you, Than, just because. Awesome. I appreciate it. By the way, so I met Two Please at the Tidal Gardens barbecue here, and it was definitely a good time. It was a bit of a blur, but I didn't realize that he was into like construction projects and stuff like that. So we might be able to work out a deal one of these days on a project here. So I'll reach out to you separately for that. Oh, by the way, that goes out to anybody that's local here. Two Please isn't local, but if you guys want to do projects here for coral, I am down. If you guys want to do landscaping for coral trade, we can do that. So just throwing that out there. Let's see. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Palitoxin. It's a thing. All right, guys. I am going to have an early dinner, most likely. Hopefully you guys enjoy what's left of the weekend. And yeah, it looks like I might have figured out what had happened with this stream. I'm still going to try some 1440 streams in the future, but it looks like 1080 is a safe bet. Kind of defeats the purpose, but maybe one day we'll get that delicious, delicious fiber connection. Then I'll give you guys a 4K stream. So anyways, I will talk to you guys all later.